Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, respected chairpersons, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here, and thank you very much to the organizing chairpersons and the entire team of Amravati OBGYN Society and EMOGS for having me here. It's good to be back in Amravati. I keep coming here almost on a yearly basis, but I think this is the first time I have such a huge gathering of so many gynecologists from all over Maharashtra at this prestigious event. I'm here to speak to you on thyroid function tests, their interpretation and management, and this is in my capacity. We've done a lot of landmark work at Foxy during my tenure as the chairperson for the endocrinology committee last year, and now of course I have taken over as the EMOGS endocrinology chairperson today through the good offices of our president Dr. Nandita Palshetkar. It's been beautifully said about 2-3 centuries ago that the best way to predict your future is to create it. Why am I opening with this quotation? Because I want to draw attention to what are some of the important landmark challenges which face all of us. You will agree that India is a huge country and there's a lot of disparity between the urban and the rural populations. Even in tier 2 cities and small towns, there's a huge gulf between the healthcare that is offered between a major city like Mumbai or Pune and a small town or a village area or a tribal area. And you will be surprised to know that we are home to some very dubious distinctions. We are the diabetes capital of the world. Approximately 60 million women, men and women, suffer from diabetes in India. We have the largest number of preterm births, about 75% of which are all preventable. And pertinent to today's topic, we are the thyroid disease capital of the world. We have 80 million sufferers. Many of these women will get pregnant and they will come to OBGYNs like you and me to actually get treated. In fact, if you look at 100 women in an antenatal OPD, approximately 20 out of 100 will have anti-TPO antibodies, about 15 out of 100 will be hypothyroid, many of whom will be subclinically hypothyroid, and you will fail to detect them in time. And that opens up a Pandora's box, because we know through meta-analysis that there's a huge number of complications which can occur if you miss thyroid issues in pregnancy. This includes, of course, preterm births, gestational hypertension, PIH, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, fetal growth restriction, and the attendant complications thereof. Last year, in association with the Indian Thyroid Society, you can see their office bearers here, Dr. Prasanna Kumar, President, and the Secretary, Dr. Shashank Joshi. We had a joint meeting with the Foxy President, the Endocrinology Committee, and the Vice President. So you can see Dr. Rajendra Singh Pardesi there, and somewhere in the corner you will see me as well. We formulated guidelines, and the last guideline, just to give you a brief, was published in 2012, 7 years ago. This guideline was formally released at the annual conference of the Indian Thyroid Society in Bangalore in May, and this was actually released at the hands of the President of the American Thyroid Association, who was an invited dignitary at this conference. So what do these guidelines look at? What do they address? And why is it relevant to today's discussion for you and me? The scope and extent of these guidelines is vast, but I'm only going to discuss one particular area, and that's the interpretation of thyroid function tests and the relevance in pregnancy and fertility treatment, which you and I are going to be doing. Summary of recommendations: we all know the reference ranges for T3, T4 and TSH. We've been taught this since our MBBS days, so this is actually a wasted slide. I'm going to skip that. What the guideline now recommends is that we should do universal screening. We have specific Indian population specific cutoffs for first, second and third trimester, which are listed there on the slide. Most of us are aware, but now we have population data from Indian studies which has corroborated the earlier empirical cutoffs which we had instituted. Let's talk about some actual practical clinical cases. Can somebody tell me what is wrong with this particular set of thyroid function tests? Everything seems absolutely normal. T3 is normal, T4 is normal, and TSH is also normal. You'll be surprised to know that those reference ranges and the figures that you saw corroborate. But unfortunately, this is a case which is missed by many of us. This is subclinical hypothyroidism. It's necessary to detect this in pregnancy, also in patients who are seeking fertility treatment. The recommended dose of levothyroxine is 1.6 to 2 micrograms per kilogram per day. Target, try and maintain the TSH to less than or equal to 2.5. reassess every 4 to 6 weeks. If patient is not responding, please refer to an endocrinologist. One very important aspect which we've added to the guideline now is about screening for TPO antibodies. This may not be possible everywhere. You may not have facilities. You may not have a good NABL accredited lab. You may not get good referencing, and you may not get good results from your lab. But where possible, try and look for TPO antibodies. If your TSH is between 4 and 10, it's recommended that you do it and you start levothyroxine. If your levels are negative and your TSH is between 4 and 10, still you would err on the side of caution and treat these patients, because the benefits are much more. This is the second case. Again, no marks for guessing. This is overt and confirmed Graves' disease. And there are clear-cut indications today as to which anti-thyroid drugs are safe in pregnancy. In the first trimester, it's recommended that you give propylthiouracil, and after 14 weeks, we switch to methimazole or carbimazole. The dosages are mentioned there on the screen. This is an August audience. I don't need to tell you what dose of methimazole or carbimazole you need to start in pregnancy. The last part of the talk is specifically about my area of interest, and that's fertility and how thyroid disorders affect fertility issues. It's recommended now that for all patients who have so-called, in inverted commas, subclinical hypothyroidism or unexplained infertility, you please treat these patients and maintain a target TSH of less than 2.5. This is as per the newest FOXI and ITS guidelines, as well as the ATA guidelines published in 2019. Also, in these patients, if you do the antibodies, there's a good body of evidence which says that patients who have autoantibodies are the ones who will benefit most from starting levothyroxine. But in those who are TPO antibody negative as well, you can add them and they will give you good benefit. This is a simplified algorithm. It's part of the guideline. In fact, I should have started off with this slide, but if I had done that, it was my first slide, it would have unnecessarily confused you. So in each of these branches, I've taken one case and I've illustrated how you go about practically treating these patients on a day-to-day basis. It's difficult to do that in a 12-minute talk, but I've tried to do justice to it. You can find this guideline on the FOXI website. It's easily available. If you can't find it, write to me. I will be happy to send it to you by email. Very shortly, this is also going to be endorsed by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and it will replace the old 2012 guideline, which is still there on the Government of India website. It's not enough to just do a lot of theory work and have meetings. It's important to disseminate to ordinary grassroots, to OBGYNs and healthcare workers out in the field. And therefore, we did this series of CMEs in about 40 locations all over the country through the office bearers of FOXI and ITS. I was one of the people there. This is a picture from one such meeting which we did in Mumbai. You can see the FOXI president. You can see Shashank Joshi as well in the picture. He actually flew in from San Francisco just so that he could be there personally for this meeting, which was on 26th of June last year. That's how committed that gentleman is to try and address thyroid issues in our country. Public awareness is also an important part of my work as the chairperson, and we launched this campaign called Making India Thyroid Aware, MITA. This was done in Bangalore during ITS Con. Dr. Hema Devakar herself was there along with the office bearers of FOXI and ITS as well. So you can see it requires a comprehensive approach to tackle what is one of the greatest unknown, unseen and silent epidemics of our time. And that's the issue of thyroid disorders. In pregnancy and fertility, we have about 40 to 60 million female sufferers in this country as of last census. And you can see that we can only see a short distance ahead, but there is plenty more that needs to be done. Thank you for a patient hearing.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Pratik Tambe, it was really a very informative. Yes, sir, questions are welcome.
Many of us use 25 microgram of Eltroxin for subclinical hypothyroidism.
True.
Is it a correct dose, and should we use it?
The guidelines recommend that the appropriate dose. Can we have the slide back up, please? I'm just going back to that slide. Yeah. So if you're treating, the recommended dose is 1.6 to 2 micrograms per kilogram per day. So in the old days, we used to have particular formulations like Ibexid, etc., where we used to give small doses, And even now, the office bearers of the Indian Thyroid Society recommend that the minimum recommendation is at least 1 microgram per kilogram per body weight,
Sir, that
which
is-
means about 50 to 75. I know this is for overt,
Yeah.
and that's why I've put up this slide. I don't have the equivalent slide for subclinical hypothyroidism, because usually then what we would do is we would do the TPO antibodies, and the recommended dose is at least 1 microgram per kilogram body weight, which means that obviously we don't have 60 micrograms which is available. So ideally you give 50 or you give 75.
So one more question is regarding the screening of baby. So when should be the baby screened?
So it depends from
subclinical
practice to
hypothyroid
practice,
patient.
and it depends on who is your neonatologist. So I have 2 different pediatricians who come to my place, and one person says do a cord blood TSH, which is what we used to do in the good old days when I had hair on my head and I was a medical resident. But the newer theory is that you wait for at least 4 to 6 weeks, and once the patient comes back for the first PNC follow-up, that is when you do it. Both approaches are not wrong, both are evidence-based. The key is that you should be able to pick up. Why cord blood TSH was advised in the old days? Because often these women came from lower socioeconomic strata. Once they had delivered and gone home, they would never come back, and you would end up missing up that baby. Finally, that child would come with either cretinism or something like that, and that was too late to treat the baby. That's why in those days, that's what was advised.
Here, yeah. Please speak in the mic, yeah.
Is the blood test really reliable for doing a TSH?
If you have blood going to a good NABL accredited lab, then it should not be an issue, as long as your transport is fine and the sample is processed within the specified time limits. That's usually not a problem.
Yeah,
The key is to
NBS
have a
definitely
good
has a
reference
great
lab.
role to play, especially for the congenital hypothyroidism. As Pratik said very correctly, before the patient, the baby comes with insult, it's always better to catch in time. One quick, because we have 20 seconds more, Pratik, for you.
I finished very early.
Very
Yes, sir.
important chai pe charcha, ki
Yes, sir.
selecting the good laboratory. That is very important part of, when we are saying so much about this, 1.5, 2.4, how to select good laboratory.
If you have a good NABL accredited laboratory, or if you have a laboratory which has passed the ISO certification, 9 times out of 10, as long as the sample is being processed directly on site in that lab, your results are going to be good. If it's collected peripherally at a collection center and 2 days later it goes to the reference lab, your guess is as good as mine whether those results are reliable.
Very good, yeah. And the same applies to the NBS as well. One need to be very careful in choosing, because there's mushrooming of the laboratories which are coming with NBS packages. So one need to see that they are time tested, they are accredited properly, and they are good enough in transportation as well, yeah. Yes, yeah. The next speaker. Thank you very much, Pratik.
Yes, so
Thank you,
the
sir.